Imagine that every time you sold your flagship product, you lost almost $7 million. Sounds absurd, right? Well, that's exactly what Volkswagen did, and not just once or twice, but 450 times. The craziest part is that they knew it from the very beginning. That icon of luxury, speed, and extravagance was created with a single intention: to break all the rules, even those of financial common sense. This wasn't a miscalculation or a bad sales strategy. It was a deliberate gamble, a declaration of war against the limits of engineering. And today we're going to tell you why the supercar should never have existed, but had to exist. When you hear that a car costs $1.7 million, the first thing you think is that whoever is selling it is making a fortune. But the case of the Bugatti Veyron was exactly the opposite. For every unit sold, Volkswagen lost between $6.2 and $6.7 million. Volkswagen knew that this cost was impossible to recoup through sales. To cover the investment, they would have had to sell thousands of units, but they only made 450. The result? Every time they handed over the keys of a Veyron to its new owner, the German giant felt a hole in its pocket. But they didn't complain, because it wasn't about the money. And this is where the story gets fascinating. The Veyron wasn't born to make money, it was born to make history. Ferdinand Piëch, then president of the Volkswagen Group, had a fixed idea. He wanted to build the best car in the world. The fastest, the most powerful, the most luxurious, the most impossible. An engineer's whim with imperial ambitions. In an interview, Piëch admitted that he wasn't interested in profit margins. He cared about legacy, and for that, there were no limits. So Volkswagen accepted the challenge, even knowing that financially it was madness. And boy, did they pull it off. While other cars were fighting to cut costs, the Veyron scoffed at financial logic. Volkswagen was losing money, yes, but it was gaining something more valuable: respect, admiration, brand power. Because if you can afford to lose millions on every car, you're playing in a different league. And that's exactly what they wanted to prove. Grandson of Ferdinand Porsche and an engineer by training, Piëch wasn't just another executive. He was a visionary obsessed with power, precision, and pushing engineering to the limit. During his time at the Volkswagen Group, he transformed the company into an empire. Legend has it that one day, without beating around the bush, Piëch expressed his wish with the coldness of someone ordering a coffee. "I want a car with more than 1,000 horsepower that can exceed 400 kilometers per hour and that you can use to go buy bread." That's how the Veyron project was born. Not as a response to the market, not as a commercial necessity, but as a personal obsession. Piëch wasn't looking to sell cars. He wanted to leave a monument on wheels. To grasp the scale of this madness, you have to understand the context. In the early 2000s, the automotive world was focused on efficiency, emissions, and costs. Brands were optimizing, cutting back, and fine-tuning. In the midst of it, a man shows up and says, "We're going to create the most extreme car on the planet, no matter what it costs." He didn't want something that worked well. He wanted something no one else could achieve. So no, the Veyron wasn't born from market studies or consumer surveys. It was born from a mind that didn't believe in limits. From a man who used all the power of the world's biggest car companies to fulfill his personal dream. Building a car with over 1,000 horsepower that exceeds 400 kilometers per hour isn't just a matter of adding more cylinders. It's about challenging physics, mocking common sense, stepping into territory where no manufacturer had dared to tread, and surviving the attempt. The Bugatti Veyron wasn't just expensive. It was a technical monster that pushed its engineers to the brink of despair. It all started with the heart of the project: the engine. Not just any engine. 8 liters with 4 turbochargers, producing 1,010 horsepower. 1,000. That figure was no coincidence. Piëch wanted it exactly right, because that meant breaking the psychological barrier of 3 zeros and humiliating any other supercar of the time. The beast needed 10 radiators to keep the temperature in check. Because the Veyron not only had to run at over 400, it also had to do so without exploding. And then there was the issue of tires. No tire on the market could withstand such speed, so Bugatti had to work with Michelin to create a completely new tire, capable of withstanding 420 kilometers per hour without disintegrating. And if that weren't enough, the car had to stop after that madness. The solution: carbon ceramic brakes, plus a spoiler that turns into an air brake. The level of detail was so obsessive that they even designed a secondary key called the speed key, which unlocked the full speed mode. You couldn't just step on the gas and hit 400. You had to stop, insert that special key, and the car would ask if you were sure about what you were about to do, because at that speed, any mistake is fatal. The result of all this obsession was a car that had no competition. Nothing matched it, not in power, not in speed, not in refinement. And the most impressive thing is that, despite everything, you could drive it like a normal car in the city, on the highway, with air conditioning, leather seats, and an almost ridiculous smoothness, but such perfection came at a price. When a car costs $1.7 million, you assume that everything in it justifies that price. But with the Bugatti Veyron, the reality is even more absurd. Each car cost much more to make than what they charged for it. Literally, each Veyron unit was built almost entirely by hand, inside a building that looked more like a surgical laboratory than a car factory. The leather came from a specific type of cow. The buttons were carved from solid aluminum. Some versions had details in white gold or inlays of precious stones. Everything was customizable. Everything was perfect. Even the car's key fob was a piece of jewelry. Literally, there was nothing generic. The sound system was designed exclusively by an acoustic specialist for opera halls. And that's the point. The obsession with perfection never stopped. And for the buyer, the story wasn't simple either. Did you know that a simple maintenance check cost between $20,000 and $30,000? That the oil change cost more than $20,000 because it involved taking apart half the engine and accessing 16 different drain points? And that the tires had to be replaced even if they weren't worn out, just for safety? And even so, there was a waiting list, and this is where we understand Volkswagen's move. The Veyron wasn't created to make money. It was created to show the world who's boss. At first glance, the Bugatti Veyron seems like a colossal mistake. A supercar so expensive to make that it lost between $6.2 and $6.7 million on every unit sold. A model that was born knowing it would never be profitable, and yet still went ahead. Who in their right mind would keep a project like that going for more than a decade? The answer is someone who thinks beyond money. Because yes, the Veyron was a financial failure, but it was an absolute success as a strategic move. Volkswagen didn't create it to make a profit. They made it to get something you can't buy with cash. Prestige, dominance, admiration. It didn't matter if Ferrari or Lamborghini sold more. It didn't matter if Porsche was more profitable. No one, absolutely no one, could match what Bugatti had achieved. And that is priceless. And as if that weren't enough, the Veyron's technology didn't end up locked away in a museum. It served as the foundation for future projects. It was the springboard for the Bugatti Chiron, and, in fact, the Chiron Super Sport 300 Plus broke records. Once again, thanks to the technical legacy inherited from the Veyron. If you've made it this far, you're now among those who know that a car can be much more than just a means of transportation. Can be a statement of what we're capable of creating when we dream big. And if this journey through the history of the Bugatti Veyron surprised you as much as it did us while telling it, I invite you to leave your thoughts in the comments. The Veyron shouldn't have existed, but thank goodness it did, because it showed us that when humans set their minds to something, they can break through any barrier. Physical, technical, financial, and even logical. And the most beautiful thing of all is that it wasn't done out of necessity, or for profit, or because of the market. It was done purely for the pleasure of proving that the impossible just takes a little longer.